Namaste. So I want to continue yesterday's discussion about antifragility and spiritual teachings. But first I want to reply at length to a comment by Prabha Raghavan. I'm still not able to guess where you exist in the infinite consciousness. Well, of course not. You cannot know another's subjectivity unless you can be them. So Ramana Maharshi famously said, you cannot see the self. You can only be the self. So you can't really know where another person is at unless you can walk in their shoes, unless you can fall in tune with them, unless you have deep compassion for them. And as far as just seeing somebody on YouTube, I don't really think it's possible to understand in detail, deeply, their mentality or their spiritual state. She says, I feel you have not concluded your searches. Well, if I ever do, then that's the end. You see, spiritual life has to be infinite, unlimited, eternal. See, if it ever ends, if there's ever a full stop, that's material. Because material things have a beginning and an end. Spiritual things don't. They're eternal. So in that way, they're unlimited in time. The search never ends. The journey never ends. That's the whole point. The endings or beginnings like birth and death are just illusions. They're not real. They're temporary, conditional. So again, she goes on, it will end only when you dissolve into Parameswara and try to experience that state. Well, I don't know about that either. You see, everyone has a unique destination, a unique destiny, a particular flavor of devotion that leads them to their spiritual destination. Rather than speculate about merging into any particular deity, let each one find their own ideal deity and then approach that deity in one of the rasas. There's 12 rasas, devotional moods. The highest is conjugal love. And then there's parenthood, friendship, servitorship, and lowest on the scale in bhakti is neutrality. So in this way, and there's different 7 other secondary rasas, like laughter and anger and so on. So that's moksha. And moksha is of 5 different types. Sālokya, moksha, means one is promoted to the planet of the supreme deity that one worships. Sāmīpya means one remains an associate of that deity. Sārūpya means attaining a form just like one's chosen deity. And sārṣṭi means attaining opulences like all-knowingness, unlimited wealth or strength, the opulences of the Supreme. And then there's finally sāyujya, merging into the Supreme Brahman. So which of these ones do you prefer? It's up to you. No one is going to impose a particular type of liberation on you. Because each sentient being is a God in his own right. So no one can impose that. No one can impose a particular taste or emotional flavor on you, on your relationship with God. It's a completely free choice. It's up to you. What's your preference? And nobody can impose a particular deity on you. I mean, how many different gods and goddesses are there? How many different forms of God? Because each sentient being is a sovereign entity. So nobody can say that the highest state is, Sāyujya mukti with Ishvara, Shiva. Nobody can say that. If you do, that means you're on the Dvaitavadi stage. You're a dogmatist. You're a sectarian religionist. And you're trying to impose your view on others. That's violent. No, in bhakti, which is the next stage, Vishishtadvaita, one realizes that there is a whole spectrum of different spiritual identities of the Supreme. I mean, when Krishna revealed his universal form to Arjuna, he had thousands and millions of forms extending to infinity. Nobody could count them. Arjuna was completely overwhelmed. So, to try to impose any limits on bhakti is just ridiculous, okay? It's not going to work. You're never going to get someone to adopt your particular views or your particular preferences of a worshipable God or goddess, the flavor of that worship, and the type of liberation, the type of moksha that you desire. It's just not going to happen. It can't. Because each living entity is sovereign in his own realm of consciousness, the subjective realm. Okay, so Ramana Maharshi was right. You cannot see the self in yourself or in others, but you can be the self. Because why? The self is completely subjective. It never becomes an object, even for a so-called other being. So, this is the thing. How do we know? How do we know what our deity is, what our form of worship is, what kind of liberation we're going to get, and so on? It's a classic epistemological problem. How do we know these? Well, there are books about it, and one can go to various authorities and so on. But these are all external. And this is the problem, because the self is never objective, only subjective. Only you can know yourself. Nobody can impose their views. I mean, you can believe in somebody else's imposition. That's what I was getting at last time, that rigidly structured belief systems always break down. Why? Because we go beyond their limits. Any rigid structure will have boundaries. This is this, and this is not this. This is my religion, that is not my religion. But of course, human consciousness, or any consciousness, is boundless. So sooner or later, in this life or another life, one will cross those boundaries and go into states of being that are not covered by that belief system. And then what? For me, this lifetime has been a wild ride. Like I mentioned last time, in the last 10 years, I've been a Vaishnava guru, a Buddhist monk, a student of Advaita, and a worshiper of the Divine Mother. How does all that fit together? Well, it only fits together in my mind. Other people just can't get it. They don't get it, and they won't get it. And that's okay. They have to find their own way. They have to find their own taste, what appeals to them. So, like recently, I did a few videos on the Siddha Lakshmi Stotram. Siddha Lakshmi Stotram is a wonderful prayer because it's a wish-fulfilling prayer. And this is a time, right now, this next month or two, when Jupiter is in Scorpio and Mars is in Pisces and they're in a perfect trine. This doesn't happen very often, that Mars and Jupiter will trine in water signs and be in reciprocal receivership and so on. It's just an amazing, wonderful time to, first of all, decide what you want and be very specific about it. What is your transcendental goal? Which deity do you love the most? Do you want to associate with for eternity? Or even to merge into, or whatever form of moksha you want, in whatever mood you want? Which pastimes, which leelas do you want to join in? In what role? See, it's a very complex, individual thing. And nobody can impose their view on another. Each one has to figure it out for himself or herself. So now is the time when these kind of wishes are granted. Jupiter is going to, or is it Mars? No, Jupiter is going to conjunct Venus in Scorpio in a few weeks. My God, what an opportunity. So don't discount these ancient rituals. They're in the literature for a purpose. And the purpose is to grant our desires. How do you approach God and beg for what you want? And don't get all proud. Oh, I'm a jnani. I'm into Advaita. I don't do all those silly rituals anymore. That's arrogance. That's pride. And that will drag you down. It takes you down to the level of Vivartha-vāda. And that's what's wrong today. People are preaching Advaita as if it's a sectarian religion. And it has certain views that are right and other views that are wrong. So then they're chastising other people for having what they consider to be wrong views. This is not going to help anything. What it really does is it takes someone who has a little knowledge, and it reveals where they actually are. They're actually in duality. They're making a distinction between right and wrong. That my taste is right and your taste is wrong. No, everybody's taste is right for them. And to try to impose that structure on another being is degrading to you, not to them. They have the option to accept it or not. But your action is degrading because it's dualistic. I am I and you are you, and I know better than you what you need. That's why I don't want to be a guru anymore. Actually, it's good to have knowledgeable people that you can approach for advice. But to say that the guru is the absolute authority over people's spiritual life is always going to run into problems. Because what's going to happen is the guru is going to impose his tastes on the followers. When I was a guru, I tried very, very hard not to do that. But, it's in the structure of a religious organization to draw boundaries between what's acceptable and not, what's right and what's wrong, what's the truth and what's not the truth. For example, the research I'm doing now into Advaita, from the viewpoint of the Hare Krishna religion, is Mayavadi. Mayavadi philosophy. Well, there actually is a Mayavadi philosophy, and it's unconditioned monism. And I guess for some people, that's the right taste. Huh? But for me, it's not. And for many others, it's not. That doesn't mean that we should condemn it, though. Huh? If I like vanilla ice cream, I do, actually. If you ever buy me ice cream, make it vanilla. And other people like strawberry or chocolate or Rocky Road or whatever. Huh? Pistachio. That's fine. That does not decrease my enjoyment of vanilla ice cream one little bit. Let them have whatever flavor they want. Just give me my vanilla. Or my taste for lions, transcendental lions. Oh, not ordinary lions. Ordinary lions aren't so bad, but transcendental lions are the real thing. They're enlightened. Oh, I'm not going to get into a riff on that. It's too personal. But whatever your taste is, you have to approach that deity in that mood, with that kind of worship. And that's what Siddha Lakshmi Stotram is for. In the beginning of the ritual, you make a sankalpa. A sankalpa is a wish or a vow, right? And either way, the rest of the prayer is, please help me attain this, or please help me do this, what I have vowed to increase my sadhana, to advance my spiritual life. Or please help me with this particular problem, or reduce this particular kind of suffering. You have to make it very specific as possible. Not just, I want a new Mercedes. No, I want a white Mercedes with gold trim and false leather upholstery. Make it as specific as possible. What kind of deity do you worship? What satisfies your heart? And what mood and what service do you want? And where do you want to go in the next life? Make up your mind and ask for it. And ask for it in a way that's supported by the scriptures, like Siddha Lakshmi Stotram. Or hire a brahmana and have him do a homa ceremony for you. You know, I mean, you can do these things. Why not take advantage of the tools? They're there. So the point of all this is the antifragility of religion comes from the perennial truth that consciousness is only subjective. Right? If you attain your spiritual goals, even if they're completely different from mine, that doesn't make any difference to me at all. In fact, it's encouraging that somebody else has attained their goals. That means maybe I can too. So it's not really good to judge others or predict what others' destiny is, unless you're one of those rare people. But even Ramana Maharshi never did that. He never claimed to be enlightened. Why? Because enlightenment, nirvana, samadhi, moksha, all these things are subjective knowledge. They can never be objective because they're not dualistic. They're only in our own consciousness. So therefore they are non-dual, and they never come under the heading of dualistic verbal or conceptual knowledge. Aum Tat Sat. Aung Harihi Aung.